Hi guys, it's Hani here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm gonna share with you how to make my first gingerbread house of the year. I'm super excited to bring you this tutorial. We're gonna be making Hocus Pocus inspired gingerbread house. I'm gonna show you how to decorate each panel individually and then also how to glue it together. So let's get started. I am using a pre-made gingerbread house kit. Starting with the front and back panel, we're gonna decorate these with 3 different colors, starting with what I think looks like fuchsia, or you can also use pink, then lighter blue and also navy blue. All of these are 15-second consistency, and then we're just gonna blend the edges. Once you're done with all the blending, you have to let it dry completely. Once dried, we can start working on the spellbook. I am using edible marker to draw the outlines. I'm gonna start with the eye using white royal icing, about 25 to 30-second consistency. Use a needle tool to shape it and then use light green and pipe directly onto the white. Then pipe a large black dot, and for the reflection use a little bit of white just on the edge. Now take brown royal icing and start making the sections. You have to let the icing crust between each section. I'm going to let the brown dry completely, and then we're going to be using brown edible dust, petal dust, with a dry food only paintbrush. Just go along the edges, give it a nice shading. You can also go all around. And now we're just gonna add some details using gray royal icing. Let each section crust before adding a design on top of it. For the stitching, I am starting with edible marker, making dots, and then I'm gonna use piping consistency ivory royal icing to make the stitches. Now we can make the snakes. Let them crust, and then you can also add the eyes. So while that's crusting, we're gonna make black flame candles, starting with the white. I'm gonna let that crust And then we're gonna come back and add few drips. We also need a cauldron, so starting with black, make the outline. Now we're adding those eyes that I mentioned earlier. Make the brew with light green. And let that crust. Now we're ready to make the drips on the black flame candle. And then we're gonna make the black flame as well. Now make a large circle and then fill it with orange 15-second consistency. I'll let that dry. Here comes the black flame. So as usual for the smaller sections I am using icing that is thicker so we don't get the cave-ins and it doesn't spread too much. I'm gonna let the book dry completely, especially the gray areas, because we're gonna come back and paint those with silver edible paint and food only paintbrush. To make the witch's lightning, which I'm gonna do on the roof as well, I ended up using a needle tool and scraping the surface of the icing, but later I kind of realized that it didn't work as well because it almost disappeared on me. So at the end of the video I ended up painting it with white edible paint. So here I'm using that silver edible paint to paint the gray sections. If needed, you might want to go with edible marker over certain spots like I'm doing here because the line disappeared on there. Add the feet to the cauldron. Few bubbles here and there. And we're gonna finish the first panel by adding Hocus Pocus onto the orange round. I am using edible marker. If you are not familiar with edible markers, be sure to check the link in the description box under the section that says tools used in this video. Alright, so that's the first panel. Second panel is going to be the side of the house. We're gonna make two of these and they are pretty easy. Starting with the windows, ice the windows with light green. And then let it crust and use lighter blue, outline and flood the whole thing. Let it dry and then make the frames. In this design I was inspired by Billy Butcherson from the movie Hocus Pocus. Billy was ex-boyfriend of Winnie's and she put a spell on him. Now once dried, we're gonna use brown petal dust just around the windows, and then use edible marker, make the dots, and then use black royal icing and make the lines across. Alright, so now we're ready to make the roof. For the roof, super simple, we're just gonna ice the whole cookie with a navy blue royal icing. And now we are ready to make the Sanderson sisters. I'm using a paper template, an edible marker to trace the outlines for the Mary, Winnie, and Sarah. Now take fine tip edible marker and make the cobwebs in each corner. Airbrush it with black airbrush food color, just the edges, not the whole thing. And now we're ready to make the silhouettes. Make the witches lightning like before. You can start with white food color. You don't have to use this technique because, like I said before, it kind of disappeared. Not completely, but it wasn't as visible as I hoped. Now splatter the cookie with white and silver food color. White edible paint and silver food color. Now this is the second panel for the roof, and tonight we fly. So I'm gonna make a broom, two brooms actually, and a vacuum, of course. So I'm starting with the sticks. Let each stick dry or crust, and then you can add the bottom. So I'm gonna do two different styles of brooms and then a vacuum. I didn't like this style, so I scraped it off and starting over. Now we can add the brush here. I'm using ivory royal icing. Make the bag on the vacuum, let it crust, and then you can add the bottom. Using piping consistency royal icing, finish the broom. And the last panel is the back panel. So for the back panel, we're gonna just add the black cat bangs. This is the last panel from the house, so we're gonna have to let all the panels dry completely and then we can assemble the house. To glue the pieces together, I am using stiff royal icing, and I colored my royal icing to match the color of the cookie. Use small bottles to support the pieces. I'm gonna let the base of the house dry for a couple hours and then we can glue the roof panels on top. Let it dry for several hours and then you can use a decorative border to fill in that gap between the two panels. Use some sprinkles on the top if you wish. Once dried, you can remove the house from the wax paper and also enhance the witch's lightning lines with white edible paint. So there you have it. I put a spell on you now and you are mine. Be sure to subscribe, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below and I will see you next time.